Over the weekend, we got news that in the upcoming Batman series, Batman Cape Crusader, they're going to be doing something different with the character of Oswald Cobblepot. Instead, they're going to do a gender swapped version of the character and make him, or now her, Oswalda Cobblepot of all names. I know I think this is kind of a dumb move on their part too, and I'll get in a little bit more on that. But first, let's look at this article from Comic Book Resources that goes into some of the details about what they're doing with this. The animated series Batman Cape Crusader will put a few spins on different characters, and the Penguin will be among them. It was announced at San Diego Comic-Con that Minnie Driver, who will voice Oswalda Cobblepot, a gender-swapped incarnation of the Penguin in the new series. Per Variety, Driver was asked to comment on the potential backlash that might be associated with reimagining the Penguin. She explained how she was so impressed with the way the character was written, stressing that this wasn't just some simple case of trying to tick some box. Driver teased that her Penguin is no less evil than the other incarnation of the supervillain, sharing her hopes that fans will appreciate the character once they see the series. I do like how she says specifically they're not just trying to tick some box with this, and if that's the case, if they wanted to do something different with the character, then I can kind of understand that. But the problem I have with this, or at least the biggest problem of it, if they were going to do something different with the Penguin, so it's not just simply a gender swapped version of it, then why don't they just create a different character? They might think, or some people might think, that it's kind of being derivative of the Penguin, but we've already seen something like that in the Batman series before. Like in the Batman animated series back in the 90s, they basically just had a female derivative character of the Joker, which was Harley Quinn. A lot of people aren't aware that she was an original character for that show. And it turned out that that was actually a pretty good character. It was really popular. She's kind of weaned in recent years with the way they've been trying to push her and almost alter how the character was. But still, she actually started off as a good character and she was an original character. And we never would have gotten her if they just tried to do a gender swapped version of the Joker. So when it comes to this, like you can see right here, it pretty much just looks like a Penguin in drag in this situation right here. Maybe it'll be a little bit different in the show, but still, I don't get why they're making this move. And she's saying like it's not trying to tick some box, as in to say like there's already a lot of female characters, and that's why this isn't just ticking a box, because they already have a bunch of female characters. And that also raises the question, so why are you doing this with this character? Because yes, there's a lot of female characters in Batman's rogues galleries, whether allies or villains, and a lot of them are pretty good characters that have a lot of fans in and of themselves. So I don't see why they'd be making this type of move, especially if, like they're saying, they're just going to be having kind of like the same type of character, just as evil as how the original Penguin was. So this seems completely unnecessary to me, but let's continue on with this. Driver explained, here's the thing, if it hadn't been so beautifully imagined or reimagined, if it had somehow just been shoehorned in to tick some box of, oh, we have to now have a fluidity around the characters, that's not it. The essence of the Penguin is the essence of the Penguin. She's properly evil. She really does some terrible things. And I hope that she will be embraced as the villain that she always has been. And this really raises questions, at least to me, because if they're literally just going to be doing the exact same thing with the character, the only difference is now he's a female, then what's the point of actually doing this type of change? Because they've already said it's like, we're not just trying to tick some box or just show that they're female just for the sake of female. But at the same time, she's also saying that he's basically the same character that he's always been. So I don't understand why they're trying to make this change, other than the fact that they are trying to virtue signal with this. And I say they're virtue signaling, and what it means, you have to look at the second half of that word. They're signaling, because it's not enough to have a bunch of prominent female villains or whatever in this upcoming Batman series, because there's been a lot of female villains in the Batman series up to this point. So if they want to make sure people understand that they're trying to do this because they're trying to push an agenda, well, then they have to do something extreme like this. Maybe they could have just had kind of a female sidekick to Penguin like Harley Quinn was to Joker. But then it wouldn't have been obvious what they're trying to do with this and trying to push that agenda, because people could just be like, oh, well, they're just doing something different, kind of like with Harley Quinn. So they have to do a deliberate gender swap like they're doing with the Penguin here in order to try to get that message across. And I think that's ultimately what they're doing with this. And it's really for their own detriment that they're doing this kind of thing, because we saw when it comes to other Batman related properties like Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. I know that's a video game, but not a series, but hear me out on that too, because I think it is pretty applicable. in that series, they were trying to push a lot of this agenda stuff with it. And obviously, for a lot of reasons, that game didn't work out. Some people will say it's like, oh, it's just because it's bad gameplay and mission design and other things like that. But I think the whole trying to push their agenda is pretty much a symptom of the greater problem, because when you're hiring people with this kind of on their mind, first and foremost, where they want to try to change things and push an agenda, well, then you're not necessarily going to hire people who are good at trying to actually create a decent game with fun gameplay and good mission design. Because if a person is hired to do that kind of stuff, like actually make a good game, well, then that's what they're going to be setting out to do. But if someone is hired where like, yeah, I can do that stuff, but I'm trying to push an agenda with like these gender swaps and race swaps and other things like that, well, then a lot of that other stuff will kind of fall by the wayside. So some will defend this by saying DEI didn't kill Suicide Squad, killed the Justice League. And I say a lot of this DEI stuff is pretty much like AIDS, where AIDS doesn't necessarily directly kill people. It just weakens your body so that something else could finally finish it off. And that's kind of what we saw when it came to Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. And I think we're going to see that in the upcoming Batman Caped Crusader. But I don't know, maybe I'm entirely wrong about it. Maybe they're doing something unique with the character and it actually necessitates having a gender swap Penguin, but I'm not convinced. And what she was saying, the voice actress for the Penguin was saying in this interview about like, oh no, it's just going to be like how it used to be, except now he's a female. It's like, that's really not going to do a whole lot to instill confidence in me. I would much rather they say they're going to go a different approach with the character, but then you could always just come back with, well, then they should just have an original character if that's what they're going to do. So this is a completely unnecessary thing. And I think it is them trying to virtue signal to some type of audience. But as we've seen time and time again, this audience that they're trying to cultivate doesn't exist. And that's why anytime studios push this sort of thing and try to make things like with gender swapped and race swapped characters and other things like that, they always inevitably fail. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Do you have much confidence that this series will work, or would you just stick with the 90s animated series because, you know, that still holds up and that's not just nostalgia talking for me? Okay, and if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And if you can, click that like button and share the video out there with your friends because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.